This is our Business Sunday. A couple of weeks ago, sometime now, I was just thinking to myself that data, information is so critical in business, okay? And a lot of these big organizations, that's how they are running their businesses. You'll be surprised. You go and search online. Maybe you go and search flight to London, and then you finish and you close your page. Suddenly, what do you find? On Facebook, they're showing you flights to London. On Instagram, flight to London. On TikTok, flights to London. Your email, flights to London. You'll be wondering, how did they know I was thinking about flight to London? Is that not so? It's not juju, it's technology. So I asked our speaker, who is my friend, who is my coach when it comes to technology and investment. So let's rise. I'd like us to honor the gift of God upon his life. Let's rise. Let's clap for Jesus as I invite Tosin Adeoti to come and speak to us as how we can use data as small business owners.
Thank you, sir. Please sit down, church. Let's bow our heads and pray. I would like you to just say a few things to God about what your desires are regarding this session. Let him know how much you need him to minister to you. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for this opportunity. We know that you care about every facet of our lives, from spiritual to physical, even to our personal hygiene. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to minister to your people. And I pray that you will use me to get their minds thinking again about the things that you really desire that they do on earth. To you be all the glory. For in Jesus' mighty name I pray. Amen. Amen. I'll start by thanking Pastor. It's always a delight speaking with him. I mean, usually he says that I'm a friend, but more and more, I see him as a mentor who has gone ahead and is always willing to interact with people. One of the things that we don't really see much about in our day and time is that we don't see how to bridge that gap between the older generation and the younger generation. And it's very important because the way life is right now, there are so many things that people that are older can teach the younger, and a lot that those that are younger can teach the older. And he's the kind of person that embodies that. So it's something that people like us aspire to. So thank you, church, for this opportunity again to minister. And please, the first slide. The first slide. I think there's a slide before this one. Today I'll be speaking about data and how much of it we really need to understand as we go along in business. And I take this scripture from Luke 14:28. And it says, "For which of you desiring to build a tower does not first sit down and count the cost, whether he has enough to complete it?" It talks about being able to understand that when you are in business, have you been able to really count the cost? Have you looked at the data before you start? And even after you started, one thing, I studied civil engineering in school, and one of the things that we see on construction sites is that it is not just good enough that you do preparations while you're about to start. It's also important that throughout the life of the project, that you are constantly looking at what is happening. You are constantly evaluating how the building goes. I mean, there are several times where we've had buildings and we've had situations where they are abandoned. One of the reasons is because as they went along, they realized that the estimate that they've had before they started the project is no longer visible right now. And that is one of the aspects that you see throughout the the books of Moses, where God had to constantly let them know the dimensions of the things that he wanted them to build. And that's why when he was building the ark, God had to tell Noah, I have specifications. There are some data that you need to use for you to accomplish the tasks that I want you to accomplish. And that's why he told him in Genesis chapter 6, verse 15, this is the fashion which thou shalt make the ark of. The length of the ark shall be 300 cubits, the breadth of it 50 cubits, and the height of it 30 cubits. Data is very important. But one of the things that I've noticed is that for many business owners in Nigeria, we do not pay a lot of attention to data. Next slide, please. And I'll put that as an example. Okay, this is the outline, case studies, what is data, why is it important, what are the different types of data, what are the sources, and then we can deal with questions. Next slide. I'll give a story that happened in 2017. Around October, November 2017, I just went to the CBN website, and what I saw shocked me. I realized that the foreign reserves that we have as a country has dwindled from about $47 billion to about $40 billion. And so I was quite surprised because I didn't expect that. What we had in the past was that because of the oil prices, it was going up. And so when I saw that, what I did was I wrote an article. And I talked about what the implications were for businesses and for individuals and for the country as well. Not long after I wrote that article, the head of strategy of popular FMCG companies, FMCG are fast-moving consumer goods. If you have all kind of product that you see, that you have, whether it's in terms of Milo, flour, they produce all those. In fact, FMCGs are so important to the nation that if you go to the remotest part of the country, you will always see it. I mean, it often baffles me where you don't see electricity in some places, there's no water in some places. In fact, some of them don't even have voter's card, but you will see their products there. And so this head of a popular FMCG called me and said, look, I saw what you wrote, and I think you should put together a report for the company so that we can help ourselves in this situation that you forecasted. And so that was what I did. I wrote a report to them about how we'll have serious issues with Forex, and that some of the things that needed to do are so and so and so and so. And that was in October 2017. By February 2018, the dollar moved from about 350 to about 390, 400. And so what happened? So let me tell you a bit about how foreign reserves work. Foreign reserves is the amount of money in dollars that comes to the coffers of the government. In other words, if you are a manufacturer here and you need to buy something abroad, you won't pay them in naira. You have to pay them in dollars because dollar is the international exchange means. So you are converting your own naira to dollars, but you can't send it to them directly. You need to send it to them through the CBN. Okay, or through your banks. The banks get the money from CBN. So it means that you need to give naira to your bank, and then the bank needs to give the dollar to the organization abroad that is making the purchase. But our commercial banks, they don't print dollars. So what happens is that the revenue that we get from abroad, whether it's in most of them right now is through oil receipts. It means we sell our crude oil and then they get dollars. Or you have people that are abroad and they send money to you. So that is what the CBN uses to pay the banks. In other words, it means that if we don't get enough dollars, it means that our manufacturers will not be able to get things abroad. And so that was what I wrote in this report for this organization. And I said, so what you need to do, because in the next 6 to 1 year, what will happen is that you now start finding it very difficult to be able to get the dollars. Because what happens is if you don't have dollars to pay those abroad, your economy will collapse. But the CBN will not allow that. So instead of constantly giving you, what they will be doing is that they will now start rationing it. So in other words, if you want to help yourself in this respect, what you need to do is that you need to fast track the processes that you will have done in 2018. So quickly, what the company did was that they needed to get some machineries. They started getting it at that time. They needed to stockpile raw materials. They started getting it at that time. And so by 2018, 2019, a lot of companies started finding it difficult to get forex from the banks. But because this company had prepared ahead of time, what they were able to do was that they were able to put those processes in place so that they could get the forex ahead of time. They could get the equipment that they needed ahead of time. They could get the raw materials ahead of time. Now, how were they able to get this? Because they had access. And they were constantly looking forward to getting the data. Now, even more than we do in Nigeria, a lot of companies abroad, their businesses are centered around data. Next slide, please. If you look at a company like Amazon, Amazon is a company that breeds data. If you go to Amazon website right now, they have over 12 million products. And constantly, they have account for how those products are sold. And that is why when, I don't know how many people buy a lot of things, in fact, it's even done on Jumia too. When you buy something on their website, as you buy it, what happens is they now start recommending other products to you. They recommend those products to you because people like you that have gone to that platform have actually been able to get those other products. And so through a big system of big data, they are now constantly monitoring the different points that you've been able to use those products. That's why sometimes if you go back to those websites, you see that, you see a pop-up that says, in your last visit, you did not complete this transaction. Why? Because they are constantly looking at the data. And that's why it's no surprise that 20 years after, even after Amazon has done all that businesses, whether it's cloud computing, whether it's in terms of even opening physical stores, the main bulk of their business is that website that they started from selling books. Why? Because they've been able to use data to be able to aggregate all the things that they see that people use and then been able to get other customers from that. Another example that I always like to use is Airbnb. So Airbnb, next slide please. So Airbnb started by some young people saying that, look, if you have a house and you have 4 rooms in that house, okay, and then perchance you're an elder person and then your children have gone, it means that you probably will be able to use just 2 rooms in that house. So what if you can get people that are coming from out of town, and instead of just going to hotels, what if you have enough information about them such that you can trust them enough, and then you can just rent one place in your house, one room in your house? What if that can work? And so they started that process, and right now, from a company that they started in 2006, that company is now worth more than right now it's worth about $69 billion. But just about a year ago, before the recession started in the tech sector, they were worth more than $130 billion. Why? Because they now have a lot of people that were interested in making extra income simply from people saying that instead of staying in hotels, why can't they be guests in their houses? And so we now had people that even built houses, and the only thing that they did was just for people to come from outside and then for them to get that apartment. But they were able to really build a big company like that simply because they were constantly testing the data that was coming to their website, to their organization. And so, in fact, if there are people here that you have apartments that you want that you would like people to use, you can go to that website and say you are interested in people using your housing. And what will happen is that they will now guide you on how to put images there. You can't just put any image because there are images that convert more than others. There are certain ways that you can write your description that will attract people more than others. So they do something called A and B testing. A and B testing means that they will show two images to different set of people, and then they will see which one is clicked more than the other. If one is clicked more than the other, they will discard the other one, and then they will ask you to use that first one. They also test pricing to say, look, if we say that this product is worth 30,000 naira, and then we say this product is worth 30,009 naira, which one will people click more? In fact, they realize that it is better for you to say a product will cost $29.99 than for you to say it will cost $29. Now, those are things that are not, they are not common sense. But again, there's a difference between testing what people actually do and for people to tell you what they actually do. You do that by simply gauging what they say and how they say it. Next slide, please. Now, all of this I have told to you is just to tell you how much data is important by organizations that know exactly what they are doing. I mean, for most of us, what we simply do in our businesses is that we just say that, look, what is common sense? What will I do? But again, data is the collection of facts and statistics gathered together for the purpose of referencing it and for you to analyze it later on. One of the reasons why personal experiences, even though they are very powerful, are not things that organizations take important and put a high premium on is that your own experience is just one out of many. Right now, last week it was said that the human population is now 8 billion. And what it means is that your experience is just one out of those 8 billion. It means that other people also have their own experiences. And if they have to rely on if you have to rely only on your own, it means that you only have your own perspective. And so it's important that you get as many data as possible from different places so that you can make your own decisions. The other time, we're discussing about how important it is for people to take the election seriously. And then we're analyzing the data. And then we realized that the truth of the matter is that to win an election in Nigeria is not really very difficult. And it's because a lot of people do not take advantage of it. So the other day I was looking at the data to win an House of Rep in Lagos. And I realized that the difference between someone winning and someone losing was just 5,000. And that's because only 11,000 people voted. So it means that so many people are actually not voting. And that if you can get enough people to vote for you, you will win elections. In fact, in Nigeria today, Nigeria is about 200 million, and we have about 120 million of them who can actually vote. But the truth matter is that since independence, anybody that has 15 million votes, that person wins the election. It's incredible if you look at the data. And so all of this is to show us that data is actually very important. Developed country takes data so seriously that they actually know the neighborhoods that produce the best scientists and engineers. In fact, they take data so seriously that they know that if you raise a child, in fact, there's a neighborhood in California that if you raise a child there, over the lifetime of that person, the person will make more than $1 million than the average American. Data is so important to them. Why? Because they are able to collect facts and statistics gathered from different places to make decisions. How many people know that to be a president or to be a prime minister in the UK, there's a particular school that all of them have gone? It's so important. And so it helps us to make decisions. And for us to continue to grow as businesses, we need to also take those decisions seriously. Next slide, please. Now, why is it important for us to take data seriously as businesses? Go on. It helps us. Next slide, please. It helps us to gain competitive advantage over our competitors. No. So the slide I will be talking about is points. Next, previous slide. I want to be taking them point by point. The overall purpose of getting data for our businesses is because it helps us to gain competitive advantage over our competitors. And I usually say that one of the ways that businesses can go ahead is that there are so many people that are not taking data seriously that businesses that actually take data seriously, we have an edge. The first point is that it helps us to get customers. There are coaches today that talks about how we can get a lot of customers for our businesses. But as small businesses, we need to realize that getting data from different people, and it could be as simple as simply asking people around you through surveys and saying that, look, if there's an opportunity for me to have this service, do you have someone that will be interested in it? I have someone that the other day I was in a training, and it's a training of business people, and I was asking them how they got started with their businesses. And so this person said that in his office, he suddenly realized that people were constantly concerned about going to the market, especially going to meat markets. And so he was wondering, because again, a lot of us, we have different talents, we have different things that we like to do. Okay, so growing up, I liked washing clothes a lot. You could give me the clothes of two families, and I'll finish. It might take time, but I'll finish them on a Saturday, and I won't feel it. Okay. Of course, that's something that I actually like to do. For this person telling this story, he actually likes going to the market. In fact, in his house, instead of giving money to his wife to go to the market, he's always the one going to the market. Interestingly, his wife doesn't like going to the market, so it's just a good balance. And so he realized that a lot of people were really not interested in going to the meat market. And so what he did was that he now took samples from people that were in his office. And fortunately for him, it was a massive complex of different offices. And so what he did was that, he now started sampling people and asking them what exactly are the things that you want and for how long will you be interested in someone helping you to go to the market. So it's after taking data points, what he now does as a business now is that he helps people to get meat. So he has a big abattoir that he kills big cows, chicken, and then he slices them and then he sells to them. Why? Simply because he was able to get enough data points. There are other people that simply what they do is that they ask one or two people and they say, look, are you interested in this service? And because those people said yes, they started businesses, only for them to realize that they don't even have enough people to service. And so at the end of the day, the business is closed down. The next slide. It also helps us to retain customers. One of the things that I notice the most is that in businesses is that there's little or no follow-ups, especially when it has to do with small businesses. They don't follow up. You buy something from them, they don't even ask you how well the product or the service that they've given to you has worked. But it has been estimated that 45% of the businesses of what makes businesses prosper is repeat customers. So it means that somebody has gotten something from you and the person has been satisfied with what you've provided to the person and the person comes back. A lot of people that buy things from you, they don't come back simply because you do not follow up and get that data from them. Next point. You also need to understand market conditions. In fact, for some small businesses, one of the things that actually rules them is that they keep on doing businesses even after the data has told them that this business is no longer visible. They keep doing the business and they keep spending the money thinking that things will improve, things will improve, things will improve. They keep spending personal money simply because they do not have enough data of the market conditions at the moment. When people hear that a company like ShopRite is leaving Nigeria and is divesting and giving the ownership to Nigerians to run for themselves, they do not understand that it is because they've looked at the data point and they realize that the market conditions for them is no longer good enough. When they hear the international bureaus has done the same, they do not really understand it. It is because they've looked at the data of the country and they've asked themselves, so if a data says that 116 million Nigerians are now in poverty, what does that say about the market? I mean, I hear this a lot. When people say that there's a lot of business, Nigeria is a big market. But it is not true if you look at the data. There are some countries right now, in fact, South Africa, that is about less than half of Nigeria, is a bigger market than Nigeria. Because it is not just the population that matters, it is what that population can buy. So, and that's why when you go to investors and you tell investors that you are catering to a population of 200 million, usually they laugh at you because it means that you've not done your research, you've not gotten the data. Certain businesses have different data points. The business for jets is different from the business for livestock. But do you have that data? Are you able to look at the data and say, look, realistically, this is how much I will be able to sell because I cannot sell more than the people that I can sell to. So you need to understand market conditions. Next slide, next point. It also helps to improve your product offering. So there are certain businesses that are divesting right now and then they are moving to other products simply because they looked at the data and they're asking themselves, what I'm selling right now, does it really make sense or should I go and do something else? And so you have companies that they used to be loan companies and then they're asking themselves, is it not better if I do a service called buy now, pay later? In other words, most people that patronize them, they are salary earners. And so they're asking, look, instead of asking people to pay at once which means that they will be paying about 30% of their salary. Is it not better that I do it in such a way in which they will just pay me 5% over 6 months? Does that not work better? Simply because they have looked at the data of people that are their customers. Next slide. Also, it helps you in financial management. Next slide. Small businesses, one of the things that you will see about small businesses is that they don't keep financial data as well. And so that affects them. So you go to a small business and you tell yourself, please, let me have a list of all the people that have bought from you and how much of things that they've bought throughout this year. A lot of them will not be able to give you that. In other words, they do not even understand how many people from how many places are avoiding how much of their products. So they can't even make adjustments. And there's something called power law. Power law says that 80% of what you produce, 80% of your revenue is gotten from 20% of your customers. It means that if you concentrate only on 20% of your customers, and then you give them more products, you'll be able to even make more. But a lot of organizations do not even have that data for them to analyze. Next point. Now, all of this is just for us to let us know that different models can work for different businesses and different organizations depending on how you are able to structure the data that you collect. Next slide. Now, next slide. Now, what are the different kind of data that you can get and how important are they? All businesses, as long as you are a business, you have data that you can collect. In fact, you have data that you are not even collecting. Because every time somebody buys from you, the person has given you data. You already have a profile of that person. How old is this person? What has this person gotten? At what point during the day has this person gotten it? I know a person that the only time that she opens is in the evening. So in the morning she does other things. It is in the evening that she starts selling. Because she analyzed the time and said, look, most people that actually buy from me, they're actually buying when they are coming from work. So what is the point of spending the whole day, the whole morning, not selling much, when I can concentrate my time, I can take care of my kids, I can do other things, then concentrate on selling in the evening. So these are the kind of things that small businesses need to start thinking about. And start saying that, look, if and what this does to you is that it now helps you to test other things. To say, once you realize that you have a product, and people are buying this amount, what if I introduce another product? Can I see how much of this will be sold? And then you can pivot from there. And also it helps because what tends to happen is that you can now concentrate on customers that are giving you a lot of businesses, and then you can even engage them more to get more things. Next slide. So those are internal data that you can get from your customers. Now, external data are the data that they are not really within your personal purview, but they are important in the overall aspect of your businesses. Let me give you an example. So you hear that the government is planning to build roads in your locality. And then you're asking yourself, so if this road comes, what are the things that will come with these roads? Now, as I say this now, you can start thinking about the things that can actually happen. But you'll be amazed how in the day-to-day activities that we're involved in, we do not really take the time to think about this thing. Simply because the mind needs for you to pay attention to it before it can start producing things. So you see that the government is about to build a road, and then you're asking yourself, if this happens, what is likely to happen? And then you start researching and say, look, so in places where there's a lot of infrastructure, what are the things that people need in those places? And how can I key into it myself? But this does not happen if you are not in tune with the external data sources that can help your businesses. A parent realizes that, look, a lot of people in that locality, they are always sending they're always taking trips for them to have their children in different schools. What if I establish a school around here? And then I develop some strategies that will help out. I can start small. But all this comes from looking at the external data and saying that, how can this data impact my businesses? There are some people that once they realize that something is going to happen, for example, the road I mentioned, and then maybe they have a big shop by the roadside, they start hoping, they start praying that the government does not demolish their shops. It is not a good strategy, especially because there are other things that God has given you and the information available to you that can help you to pivot your business and do something else. So all of these are important. But how can we even source this data? Next slide. How can we get this data? And by what means can we even get data? There's something called the macro data. The macro data talks about the data that affects a large section of the population. And that's what we call macro data. So we have something called macroeconomic indicators as well. And all these are gotten because you are able to look at. So what happens is that statisticians all over the country, they have different departments and different faculties. They look at the data and they say, look, how many people around us, how many people in this country, what is their age bracket? How many of them are males? How many of them are females? How many of them are in university? What is the data saying about this? And then they publish it for the entire country to see. An agency of government that is in charge of that in Nigeria is called the National Bureau of Statistics. So they release data about the macroeconomic condition of the country every month. Now, from this data that they get, organizations, media organizations like the Financial Times, like the Economist, like Nairametrics, what they now do is that they now look at this data and then they interpret it and then they say, how does it matter? What does it matter? And how can people like us use it? But if we are not even aware that they release this kind of reports, there is no way we can take advantage of it. And that's why it's important that we are able to see how we can have access to this data, because it will help us to improve our lives. On one of the projects that I'm working on right now, we are working on how to improve the economic condition of people who are unemployed in Lagos State. And what we did is to actually look at the data and say, look, we know that in the country, Lagos State has one of the lowest unemployment rates in the country. I mean, if you are surprised by that, you can imagine how it is in other places. And so to say, but in this Lagos, there are some places that have unemployment rates as high as other states. So how can we improve this? And what are the opportunities for businesses in these places? So those are macro data that we can use. We also have macro data. Micro data are the next slide. Macro data are the data that you as an organization, as a small business, have control over. And I've mentioned a few of this in the previous slide to say that how many small businesses in this place actually have done a survey for their customers? How many of you have printed out something and said, look, you as a customer, I want you to fill this for me. And it starts with you learning to ask the right questions. What are the questions that can improve your businesses? Are you getting good customer service from us? What do you think we can improve? How can we improve it? Now, these are the kind of data that you need to get from your customers. You can print them out and then you can look at it and say, look, how have they answered this? And you can make decisions based on this. In fact, you might even realize that you need to change the kind of business that you do simply because of the feedback that you have gotten from your customers. You can also have key performance indicators for your staff. So you will hardly see a small business that really takes into cognizance and really takes paramount the issue of key performance indicators. So key performance indicators is saying that at the beginning of the financial year of your company, it can be the calendar year, say January to December, or it could even be like other companies to say that it's it's October to September, and say, look, what exactly are the things that we want to achieve as a business based on the data that we have gotten, and how are we going to achieve it? These are the things that will help you to make the things that we call KPIs, the key performance indicators. And say, so for your staff, these are the things that we expect from you, and we want to be able to measure it because we need that data from those measurements. And I cannot overemphasize how important it is for you to keep adequate records of your books. To say, so what did we even stock this month? What did we stock last month? And what is the difference between the two? How many items of this product did we sell? How many items of this product did we sell last month? And in January, how many of them did we sell? If you see a downward trend, you can start asking yourself, does it mean that the demand of this product is reducing and we need to either make more efforts on this, or do we even need to look for another product to sell? For most businesses, it is until the entire demand has collapsed, that's when they start noticing. But big companies don't do that. The reason why a company like Pepsi, another company like Coca-Cola, they are able to constantly sell to us is because they're always looking at the data of the purchases. In fact, there are certain people, the other time somebody told me that he was not able to, that for many months they were getting Biggie Cola where he was living. But for the last few months, they were not able to get again. And then I spoke with someone who is the sales manager of that region, and they said, look, they stopped it because they didn't get enough demand. And this is what data does. Small businesses don't take that into cognizance. They do not realize it until when there's a disaster. But that is not how to do business. You need to constantly review the data, and you need to constantly pay attention to trends. And one of the good things about the age we live now is social media. You can run polls, you can do surveys, you can ask questions on social media, and then you can get people to actually answer you about it. But this does not happen if you don't realize the importance of macro data and to tell yourself that, look, I need to constantly review this myself. Next slide, please. So what all of this, what it does to us and what can really help us as a nation and can help small businesses is that we need companies that are wholly devoted to gathering data. Gathering data can be a lot of work. In fact, what happens in developed countries is that we even have data companies for specific sectors. To say, so for the technology sector, we have companies that are dedicated to getting data and then letting these organizations know. For the human resources, they have data about the number of HR personnel that they have. They have the number of program managers that they have. They have IT professionals. How many of them do they have? Because what happens is that they now realize that, in fact, one of the reasons why there's a demand for IT professionals all over the world and remote work is booming is because a data analysis company actually projected that if they don't start taking in people from different countries and using them as remote workers, they will not be able to service their current clients. And so what they now did was they now expanded their pool and said, look, wherever you are, as long as you are skilled enough, we are interested in hiring you. One of the reasons why you will see a country like Canada saying that they are going to increase the number of people that they bring into their country is because they realize that if they don't bring these people, their economy will collapse. And so countries like Japan, countries like South Korea, countries like China, they are getting worried now because, in fact, China is now, you probably know that China as a country used to have a one-child policy. But they now realize that if people do not give birth, there will be a problem. So I saw a news last month that shows that the government is now calling newlyweds and asking them when are they going to get pregnant. I mean, it has gotten to that. So why they don't wait for disasters to strike before they start putting together a remediation measure? And that is the way it should be for us as a country. We need to take data seriously. We need to have organizations that are constantly looking at the data and asking themselves, how can we help small businesses? And that is what my parting shot will be to us. For small businesses, we need to realize that our opinions matter. Okay, I mean, there's a code that says that, look, if we have to make a decision, if we have to go for the data, let's look at the data. If it is opinion that we are looking for, let's go for my own opinion. Okay, if we are having a discussion about how to improve things, and all of us are talking, and nobody's able to provide proof, to provide data about how things should go, then use my own opinion. But if it's about data, let's go for the data. And that is what I will urge us as small businesses to do. I mean, this is useful across board, not even only business, even as personal individuals. Do you know how much income is coming to your account? Do you know how much is going? Do you know what you are spending the most on? I mean, these are all the kind of information that we should have as individuals, which will now translate to our businesses. And so, in God we trust, but all other people that want us to trust them, let them bring data. Thank you so much.
So what we're going to, thank you very much. Let's clap for him, please. Thank you so much, Tosin. Thank you so much. God bless you.